So Connor Denoon, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Connor is a registered clinical counselor in Vancouver, and I'll provide more information below the YouTube video. You can just send me that later.
Sure.
And so we're talking about the Friendship Bootcamp podcast, the book, and where is the friendship process stalling for you, right? So this is a chapter I thrown in the book because I figure wouldn't it be great to just identify, if possible, if there was sort of like main stages where it stalls, just like a car stalls or whatever it is, as opposed to it's elusive, it's vague, it's all over the place. But I feel like there's only so many, right? So I'm curious because your role on the show is I mean, it's in other areas as well, but I mean, like confidence and self-esteem is kind of like what we kind of talked about. And I'm curious to know if we can kind of go over these. Where do you think people are kind of having the most challenges, right?
Right.
And it was 9 recently, and then I added another one because I was thinking just that very first one of even finding social gatherings, right? Because that could be like a Google search, but it depends on your small town, whatever. But in your experience with your clients, do you find that people even just have a problem finding groups to just check out, like public events?
Yes and no. So I guess that goes over the 10 points. So yes, people do have a problem finding where do I start? And what I really promote or encourage for clients is to try and find some kind of avenue that aligns with their interests. And I also really promote volunteer work of some capacity that aligns with an interest. Because then people are more likely to find folks whose interests also align, and therefore a connection can be made a little bit easier. And also volunteering has other positive mental health effects, like feeling a part of the community, and also giving back. However, this day and age, especially here in Vancouver, it can be challenging to encourage someone to donate hours of their spare time because it's so expensive to live here that people are working quite a bit.
Yeah.
And what spare time they have, they might want to might be downtime of some capacity, and it takes a lot of energy to get yourself up and out there, and especially engaging with new people. That's a huge energy consumption to do that. Yeah. But yeah, so my first avenue is usually volunteering, and then probably a bit more specific to myself and my practice, because I work primarily with the LGBTQ community. There are 2 big organizations here in Vancouver that have tons of social opportunities, volunteer opportunities as well, but also just meetups and gatherings. Should I name them?
Sure.
So one is the Health Initiative for Men, really geared towards men who have sex with men. They're really trying to broaden the definition. It used to be for gay, bi, and trans men, and now it's men who have sex with men. And I was actually just at a meeting last night that they want to even broaden it more, just to be more inclusive of folks who might not necessarily identify as gay, bi, or trans, but still fit somewhere on that spectrum of LGBTQ.
Okay.
So that's one of them. But yeah, more geared towards those who identify as men. Okay. And then the other would be Community, which is a more broad LGBTQ nonprofit, also in the West End, and tons of resources and gatherings for everyone in the spectrum. So that's another avenue I really encourage my clients to go check out.
Yeah. And you mentioned Meetup as well.
Yeah.
And, I'm involved with Meetup with the Meaningful Discussions events, but I hear mixed reviews all the time. Some people go to a few and then they don't come back because of no-shows or last-minute cancellations, whatever.
There's also a financial barrier to Meetup. From what I understand, I actually haven't tried it myself, but I've encouraged some clients who are like, oh yeah, I tried to create a group, but then I have to pay for it.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know how much, I don't know if it's that much, but still, again, coming back to this expensive city, it might be a bit of a barrier for some folks to be able to control and manage or create their own Meetup group or experience.
Yeah, it's I think around 20 Canadian or $15-16 US a month to organize, but then you get to organize 3 groups. But I think most people just attend, you know. But yeah, see you don't even go to a lot of meetup events, but I always ask like a random person, like I'm assuming more people do, but I actually only go to my events. So
Right.
I mean mostly my events, which is like I don't know. But I'm a control freak. So.
My social capacity, I've realized since like really working full time in this job, has really dropped. And there was actually a recent study put out that I'd love to find and send to you, because this really hits the nail with this whole project. Is we only have capacity in our lives for 5 close friends. That's what the study found. That's the average.
Yeah.
And I think it was up to 20, maybe 30 acquaintances.
Okay.
So that's our capacity. But we hear messages from media and the society at large that like we should have 30 close friends and 100 or more acquaintances. And like I'm sitting here being like, how I can only manage like my 5 or 6 close friends here in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And then the other kind of acquaintances I have, and like I'm full up. But I also identify as an introvert, so I definitely need my alone time to like recharge and recalibrate.
Yeah. Well, I kind of wanted to, if I could, just break into 2 episodes in terms of like when making new friends and then maintaining and deepening friendships, if we can do that. So in this case, sort of we can go on the assumption that the person is looking for new friends and they're facing barriers, right? So even like, for instance, making the effort to leave their home and go out into the world, you know, and meet people at social gatherings. Let's say they did find something, right? There's got to be some self-esteem or confidence barriers going on there, especially in the world of Netflix, and like they can binge watch all night if they wanted to, and sort of have a break from their loneliness, so to speak. But have you found that, you know, people have those barriers of like, okay, there is an event, they know that, but like leaving the house, especially if it's raining. Or there's an added excuse, I guess. They could say, "Oh, it's raining. I'm gonna." What do you think? Like,
well, humans are fantastic at coming up with excuses not to do something. So, like, just going off that, like, "Oh, it's raining. I don't want to go." Like myself, I do it too. So you're absolutely right that actually, if you've found something to go to, but you just cannot bring yourself to leave the house, there is some kind of psychological barrier at play. Whether it's like stemming from an anxiety, most likely. I say most likely because if you were struggling with depression, that will to leave probably isn't really there at all, and you'd be hard pressed to even find an event to go to. So like let's say like you were saying, the person's found something, but they just can't get out the door. Most likely an anxiety at play, or a confidence, self-esteem type barrier at play. And I think it kind of comes back to this element of rejection, or like I'm not good enough, or I'm not good enough for people to like me or to connect with other people. And those are really powerful obstacles, especially rejection is, I believe I've talked about this with you before, not on this platform though, but rejection's a really primal emotion, because way back when if we were rejected from the social group, it really actually meant like death. In the last 100 years, probably less, like 50 to 70 years, have humans really been able to actually like truly be able to have their needs met in an isolation capacity. So rejection is very real, and it is very painful, like deep down. So what ends up happening is people cope with that by avoiding. So they will not even put themselves out there to be rejected, but then you're just holding yourself back. So in my capacity as a counselor, it's working through those feelings, and perhaps most likely someone might have had an experience of like a really painful rejection in their past that might need to be reprocessed or examined, and challenging those like negative automatic thoughts, and negative beliefs that they might have of themselves
Yeah.
is kind of the first direction to kind of take. And also teasing out confidence because you can be confident in your job, but not confident in a social setting, or you can be confident driving your car, but not cooking a meal. So there's other avenues of confidence. So if you can really like boost the areas where people feel confident, there might be a bit of a spillover effect, or it might boost it enough that they can like eventually bring themselves to get out of the house.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that could be at play if their financial situation is not that high, and that could come up in conversation. Now they want to avoid that, or they feel shameful, right? So yeah, tons of things. Sometimes I think when I've been in that situation where I don't want to leave the home, I feel like I catch myself in overthinking the whole situation. You know, just go out. I promised myself I'd go out, and I'm now breaking that promise. Like, what's going on there? Because then I can't even promise myself anything anymore. Like, I can't rely on my promises. There's a spiral, I guess.
It reminds me of a little intervention I do with clients. It's like a worksheet, but I do it with them first and then send them home with the copies of the worksheet. It's like decatastrophizing. So asking the client to come up, what is the worst possible thing that could happen?
Yeah.
What is the most likely thing to happen?
Nice.
How would you feel if the worst thing did happen? How would you feel in a week, in a month, in a year? Just kind of challenging, because the worst thing rarely happens to us. It's possible, but it rarely does happen. Like the most likely, so let's say you're going to a social event. The worst thing that could happen, for myself at least, would be I show up, I grab a drink, and I stand in the corner alone and kind of like beating myself up in my head.
Yeah.
The most likely thing to happen is probably like go to the event, grab a drink, have some surface level conversations with folks. Probably because again, introvert, probably get a little drained, end up leaving, going home and being like, that was okay.
Okay.
But even that is much better than the worst possible thing, right? Because you're still making a connection with some folks out and about. And maybe even often the unlikeliest to happen. Maybe you meet someone that you really connect with, and then the world's your oyster in a way, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And you actually went ahead to the next stage where, let's say you go out to the event and you're making that first contact though, right? Do you find that people don't want to be that person to walk up? They want to be walked up to, and then there could be a catch-22 with that whole thing, I guess? Or
I don't know, in my sessions I've really dissected that a lot. What I find is people are uncomfortable with the surface level conversations. Like it's like they want to jump immediately to a deep and meaningful friendship and don't understand, or maybe are hesitant to do the work to actually like get there. But there's like many steps before that deep, meaningful friendship can occur. So that does often include some like surface chat to be able to like learn the questioning to get deeper, or at least get some information to go a bit deeper. And then that just takes time to get to the more meaningful friendship and connection. So I guess I kind of like teach clients like conversation skill sets sometimes, like asking open-ended questions rather than like closed. So that's questions that will not result in a yes/no answer, which can like really advance a conversation forward. So questions like, how do you feel about something? What are your thoughts on something?
it can be very meta, I guess, like right in the moment. So, I mean, I guess the cliche is, have you ever been in this place before, or this group? Have you been to an activity with this group
That's
before?
close-ended.
Oh, that's right.
Yes
totally.
or no.
Totally. Okay. But
how do you feel about being here tonight?
So would that be actually the very first, if we go right to the very first contact with that person?
No, you'd
how do you feel about being
like, how are you?
Okay, so that's what I was curious about. Because we're starting, right? How are you? Okay. Yeah, hi, how are you? Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. It's like interesting to be here tonight. How do you feel about being here? I feel a bit anxious. Oh, me too. And then look, there's like that a point of universality. Like, I don't usually come to these type of things. Oh, me neither. Like, how long have you lived in Vancouver? Like, and on it goes from there.
Yeah. I guess okay, so if we're going now to step by step, right? This is great. So, and then I think I make a distinction even with small to medium. Okay, medium slash deep talk. Because I know not everyone's into deep conversation, but like making that transition from small talk to medium talk, I guess because I've just noticed sometimes it stays in small talk and like, oh no, my allergy to small talk is coming on. I need to take my buffer kind of thing. Right? It's like, so do you have like a technique of like getting a little bit deeper, or like, is it going more personal basically? Or yeah, I know I'm dissecting it, but like elevating from small talk to medium or deep talk, do you have like a strategy?
I think like medium talk is like, in my mind, I have never conceptualized it this way, but just off the cuff, it's like how I would maybe go about it is talking about how they're like feeling or experiencing in the present moment.
Yeah.
Deeper would be like past experiences or feelings, and struggles and successes might be a bit deeper.
Yeah.
Where medium talk might be a more present focus. Like I said, how do you feel about being here tonight if we were at some event? Like if the person was open and receptive enough, they would probably tell you their feeling of being there. If you were like, well, how do you feel about Justin Trudeau being elected? It might be a bit deeper because you're exposing like values and beliefs in a statement like that.
Sure.
And someone upon first contact might not want to go there and discuss politics, or their family, or depending on the work, maybe even their work. Like I know even for myself, this is the nature of my job. I can't really like talk about my work that much because I can't. It's like privacy and confidentiality.
Yeah.
But like I don't really dive too deeply unless it's another counselor. I don't really dive too deeply with people and like what it is that I do.
But would you take the initiative then if you feel like you're caught in some small talk zone? Would you then take the liberty of getting to the medium talk instead of waiting for them to do the medium talk?
It depends what the goal is of the interaction.
Yeah.
Myself personally, maybe. I don't know.
I guess if you like, assuming you like them,
I like the person.
Yeah, I
and
like
all
the
that.
person. Yeah.
Yeah, I would take that initiative.
Okay.
Because rarely it comes back to a piece on vulnerability. To like shift a discussion and to go to like medium talk it's a risk, and it takes some vulnerability, and that from yourself in initiating it and from the other person to open up a bit more.
Yeah.
But I've noticed more recently that people are hesitant on taking that initiative, and it might come back to that like first piece about rejection and putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you've put yourself out there enough to go to an event where you don't know anyone and you're trying to make connection, like what's the harm in taking that like extra leap in terms of trying to shift a conversation into medium or potentially like bigger talk or deeper talk rather.
Sure. Interesting. Okay. So now let's say everything went well and you mingled and everything like that. Or the person mingled, isn't it, for you in this scenario? It's time to leave. Some people exchange contact information. Some people don't. And I've noticed that, this awkwardness. They stand up, get their jackets. Somebody said, hey, we should, can I get you? We should, sometime, whatever. But it's so awkward. Why is it so awkward? Why haven't we evolved as a species? We can make things to go to Mars, but we can't just say, I enjoyed the chat with you. Here's my number or here's my email. I don't know. But there must be so much going on there. But like, have you demystified this a little bit?
Well, the two things that come to mind is like right at that moment, you're hitting a precipice of vulnerability and a potential rejection.
Sure.
Because the person could say no.
Yeah.
Or they could say yes, but never really like respond to. That might come a little later. But like, and it's putting yourself out there. It's like you're exposing your feelings that like I enjoyed your company.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't enjoy mine. Who knows? That might be going through that person's head as they're trying to exchange contact information, and that's very vulnerable to like put yourself in that position.
well, have you found, I mean, maybe it's just too personal. Just let me know if it's too personal.
Okay.
But like in general, that people do exchange. I mean, it's like, I can't remember that many people that have said, no, I've actually secretly hated this conversation and I really don't want to see you ever again. Like really, it doesn't, even if they don't have time to hang out later, they might still, I mean, they usually do if I make the effort. I mean, I'm gauging a vibe too to make sure that it's reciprocal. But I mean, I'm assuming you haven't. You're a very likable guy. I can't imagine somebody just saying no. I can't believe we're not going to exchange information.
No, it's never happened to my face.
Okay.
But then what happens in today's day and age, because it's really easy to just not get a response or like flaky responses like, oh, I'm busy this week, but then they won't follow up with like, but I'm free this day. It'll just be this general, oh, I'm busy.
But that's another stage.
That's another stage.
We're going to get to it. So, okay. So then it sounds like it never happened for that. Right. So that's,
well, I would never say never. You can't put a blanket statement,
sure.
But like, I think it would be very rare to like be flat out rejected while exchanging contact information. And you brought up a point, like there is an element of self-awareness that has to occur that like you are at least somewhat aware that that other person also enjoyed your company. But again, like even if the person didn't, I think it would be rare to be flat out rejected or refused in that moment. Yeah.
Okay. So since we're in this right area and you said precipice, right? There's got to be a way to tactfully say, you know what, either I've got enough friends in my life or I'm having a hard time to make time for my friends as it is, or not necessarily that I didn't actually have a good conversation, but I don't want to hang out with you. But there's got to be a way, and maybe I'm putting this all on your shoulders, but like I'm giving you some, you know.
Like to reject someone, you mean?
Or to not accept the exchanging of contact information. Because if you are not interested in following through, then you're basically lying to their face in a way by saying, let's totally get together sometime, rip up the thing later, right? So do you think there's a tactful way?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And I'm smiling because I use it in dating.
Okay. For sure. I mean, it's another...
But it can be translated to friends, too.
Yeah, sure.
So what I would say, personally, would be something along the lines of, I really enjoyed your company tonight, but I don't really feel that much of a connection that this would carry forward in any capacity. Okay. Something like that. Yeah, what I say to people that I don't want to go on like a second, third date with is like, I really enjoyed our time together tonight, but I'm just not feeling that romantic connection. Yeah. But I wish you all the best in your dating and going forward. Yeah.
So you're a superstar in the dating, just even by doing that, because most people wouldn't do that. Like you're in the 0.001% of honesty. That's awesome.
Well, I don't like ghosting. Ghosting is like
evil.
I hate it. Yeah. I think it's extremely rude. And really, I think it's really hurtful, and it's better for someone to receive a rejection that's like clear and kind than it is for them to kind of like create that rejection in their head. Because if you get ghosted, you eventually come up with the reasons, well, why did I get ghosted? Oh, yeah. And then you create it for yourself in your head. Yeah. Which can be really negative. Maybe I'm not good looking, and like I'm dating. Maybe I'm not good looking enough. Maybe I'm boring. Maybe I'm a bad kisser, or like maybe I'm a bad conversationalist, or like whatever you come up, which might not even be true. Yeah,
we should probably bring this back to friendship.
Yeah, but even for friendship, like maybe you're boring. Maybe or maybe I'm boring. Maybe I'm not. I don't know what questions to ask. Even still, people cultivate friends based off looks at times. Like there is something with that, depending on the person or the group of people.
Like attracts like a little bit? Or?
Kind of, yeah. Or like some people have an image that they're trying to cultivate and project into the world. Sure. That might, and someone might, and I'm not saying this is a good thing. I think it's quite toxic, but there are people out there who do that. So
Okay. So getting back to that super impressive thing that you were saying, that sort of rejection, whatever you want to call it, if we can make that a little bit more of the friendship context, because there's so much, there's categories in dating that don't apply to much friendship, right? It's more murky, right?
I would still say like, it's a very similar statement though, that like, I had a really great time chatting with you tonight.
Yeah.
And then insert as close to the truth as possible. However, I don't have a lot of time in my life to cultivate new friends. Maybe I'll see you at the next event around here.
Okay.
Something along those lines.
Okay. And since you're in this mindset, can we turn it the other way if you did have a good time? Like, and do you want to go for it? Just like in terms of offering to exchange your information now.
I'd say something probably along the lines of like, hey, I really enjoyed chatting with you tonight. I'm wondering if you'd be open to hanging out outside of this event or outside of this organization, or do you want to go for a beer sometime, or do you want to go for a walk, or whatever it might be. That and low barrier. That's like if you want to propose something to do, make it low barrier and make it time sensitive. A lot of people, as you're first starting to get to know them, don't want to invest a whole day of hanging out. It might only be an hour or two, like a coffee, a beer, and like, not a meal, because that's time intensive and can feel quite trapping for some folks as well. So if you can make it a light activity, that's only a couple hours to start, and then eventually you'll get to that place where you might be spending a whole day or traveling with the person or something. At one point, but not at the beginning.
See, you now doubly impressed me now, because I think a lot of people, I'm not saying a lot of people, including myself, whatever, they just say, hey, we should exchange contact information. It's almost like get it and run, and it's a victory. But you're actually putting in ideas, because otherwise it's going to be text back and forth. I don't know, what should we do, whatever, and then you have no idea. But you're already sussing out stuff with low bar of commitment.
Well, and hopefully you would have gathered some information in your chat to be able to propose something that the other person would be up for. So like maybe it comes up that they don't drink. Okay, well, I know not to invite them for a beer. Maybe we can grab a coffee. Maybe they don't drink coffee. Okay, well, let's go for tea. Or like, okay, they don't do any of that, which I have run into. Like, I was about to be judgmental, but I caught myself. Or like, let's go for a walk around the seawall, or grab an ice cream if it's the summertime or wintertime. I mean, people eat ice cream multiple times a year. But anyway, the point is you can gather information from your initial conversation to hopefully propose some level of like low barrier, low time commitment activity to like transition the interaction outside of where you first met. Okay.
I hope I'm not putting too many questions in, but I'm just, these juicy questions. There's one more that comes to mind.
That's okay.
Okay, let's say, it's either, same sex and you're attracted or you're not attracted, or opposite sex, whatever, but there's a potential for a romantic connotation, and you don't want to give them the wrong idea. You're actually interested in hanging out, but you're not interested in romantically. I guess you could just tack on as friends if you want to be very implicit or whatever, so they don't know. Okay, there you go. There, I figured it out. Just as friends sometime. I mean, to me, it's almost like, I boxed you in. But I mean, but
that might be all the person is open for.
That's right. Yeah.
And then it becomes kind of a take it or leave it situation. Like, if this is just friends, and what we're talking about right now is cultivating social connections, and our audience should be open to that, to friends. Sometimes that can come out later, like if you do go meet up and flirting is happening, then that's up to the person who's not into that to set a boundary. Like, I'm not really like looking for that right now, or I have a partner already, or I don't feel that romantic connection kind of thing. But in terms of what we're talking about, I would really encourage folks to just go in as looking for social connections. Like, that's setting your intent.
Sure.
That I'm looking. And I go through this with clients as well. Like, especially LGBTQ, is like if I encourage them to go volunteer or go to a hymn social event, okay, well, what's your intent? Is your intent to find a partner, or is your intent to find friends? And like really, and if they're like, well, I don't know, then it's the more work needs to be done in terms of teasing that out. But if they're like, okay, no, I just want friends, it's like, okay, well, then that you have to set that intent and go in there with that mindset of just friends.
Yeah.
And so like once you set that intent for yourself, your body language and communication starts to reflect that. You won't be sending off flirting vibes or like romantic vibes. You'll be sending off social vibes.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we're almost at the edge of this this first section, and I really appreciate your time with this. So, okay, let's say you exchanged contact information now, and now it's taking the initiative to follow up. And you did almost have like an edge into this already by sussing out ideas beforehand, because I think a lot of people don't do that. So, like, you already have an idea of what you'll do together. And I guess if you don't do that, which I think a lot of people don't, then you're running into who's going to be the first one. There's no, like, if you just exchanged contact information and then, you know, how long does that almost expire? Like, I've had this business card of this person, this potential friend for years. And then I did follow up and it was awesome. But like, it was getting dusty and I was a workaholic. And I at a certain point, I just thought, there's no way he's going to be receptive anymore, because he's going to either have forgotten about me or it's just be like a year later, something like a year. It was like weird. Anyway, but I don't know why he didn't either. But yeah, so do you sort of have any sort of tips on like just taking the initiative to follow up once you've exchanged information to do something? Yeah.
I think, and there's no research or anything on this, it's a personal belief. I think like there is a timeliness. It's all about balance, right? Like, you don't, personally, like I wouldn't want to get home and text them, like give some space, right?
Sure. Yeah.
That might be, they might also think like, oh, well, if they're texting me already, like, what are they going to be like as a friend? Like, is this going to be a demanding friendship or like a demanding connection? So I think there's a balance to be struck, but I do think that there is a timeliness factor. And again, these are all just personal beliefs of mine. So I wouldn't see harm in following up a day or two later, just saying like, hey, I really enjoyed your company. What's your schedule like to grab that coffee if you did insert an idea? Or then now's the time to start putting forth ideas. Like, are you open to grabbing a beer after work, or a coffee, or a walk or bike ride or something? Like I kind of said, low barrier and low time commitment.
Yeah. And is this an email or a text?
A text.
A text. Yeah. Interesting, right?
I would do a text personally.
Is that a demographic thing? Like, I mean, is that like an age thing?
It might be, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, like I'm 31 and I think it would be odd to shoot someone an email.
Okay.
It's very formal email. Like,
interesting.
That's what, like all I use email for now is for business. And I mean, there's a group of friends and I are planning a trip in the fall, so we're emailing just because it's just a bit easier to have it all laid out on an email rather than text message threads. But for something like this, like it's more personal, and they gave you the number. Yeah. I assume that's the information that was exchanged. Yeah. So
okay.
People these days are very hesitant talking on the phone.
Yeah.
So again, I wouldn't. And everyone's schedules are all over the place. It's easier to send a text and the person can look at it when they have the time and respond to it when they have the time. Whereas a phone call, they have to be present and available in that moment you're calling. And then they might have their own stuff going on for them where they might not want to return the call, or something might be holding them back from returning the call.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I would guess people in their 40s and up will probably do email, and maybe the 40 is the cutoff or something like that but I just find like, you know, your thumbs can't be super small. No. Like to text versus typing, it's like night and day with speed, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know. It's almost like, I don't know what's going on with that. Because like if they write you a text with 3 questions in it or something like that, sometimes that happens. Like, or we could do this, or how about that? And it's like, oh man, this is like a 5-minute text back.
Well, that's like overload though.
Okay.
So that's also a counseling skill, is to just ask one question at a time, not to overload the person or overburden them, because you're exactly right. It can become overwhelming. It's like, oh my God, now I have to spend 5 or 10 minutes crafting a huge text response. So,
because if you ask what's your schedule like, well, on Mondays I'm like this hour to this hour, Fridays I'm this one. That could be a long email to send the schedule.
well, then it's up to that person to set their own boundaries.
Okay.
That's not your problem.
Yeah.
They can say, yeah, I'm free Wednesday night.
Okay.
Maybe they're free Thursday, Friday, or whatever, other nights, but they've allocated, oh, I could see Wednesday night.
Yeah. One thing that I found is like, if you say, if they're okay with the reception of it, you know, like you initiate, they said, sure, we'll hang out sometime. Then, I usually say, because if you're interested, I'll send you a couple dates that work for me. So now they don't have to worry about doing that work. It's like the least amount of work for them. They're interested in the activity, and now I send them 2-3 dates, and that usually probably works.
Yeah.
And then if not, then they just, that kind of thing.
You're absolutely right. That's another way of going about it. Like, hey, how's it going? Just wondering if you're open to grab that coffee. I'm free Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah. Now you've done, like, it's off, the onus is off you. Sort of thing.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So I want to ask you, out of all those, you know, those stages with your clients, and this is not divulging anything private about any particular person, but in general, you have this sneak peek to me in terms of like counselors into society, right? Mm-hmm. Disclosing these things. Is there any one of these that sort of stick out in terms of the biggest barrier? Like, you know, finding events, leaving the house, making first contact with a stranger, small talk, medium/deep talk, exchanging contact information, and then following up later. Like, does something just stand out as the biggest one that seems to be people have issues with, or is it just all over the place?
It's all over the place, but it would be, in my experience with clients, like 2, 3, and 4, like leaving the house, making contact.
Yeah.
And engaging in like the small medium talk, or I think what I see the most is, or people having the most trouble with.
And then you said the precipice, though. Is that because that's the exchange in contact?
I haven't seen that too much.
Oh.
Usually people will like at least connect with like one person or no one, right? It's like a bit black and white that way. But if they've connected with one person, I haven't really heard, at least in my practice, that people have come in and said, I couldn't go ask them for their information. Usually, like I said, it would be the 2, 3, and 4 that I've seen people struggle with the most.
So if they can focus, I mean, the idea is like focusing on your weakest areas.
Yeah.
And now you're a superstar.
Yeah. I'm not saying that it does, like making or exchanging information or other areas wouldn't be challenges for people generally, but like, just in terms of what I've come across, it would be like the courage to get out of the house and go. Yeah. Making first contact while you're out at an event or a gathering of some kind. And knowing that appropriate balance of like the questions to ask, so you are like in that medium, that happy medium talk zone for like at least an initial contact with someone.
Do you know what came to mind while you're talking? I was listening to what you were saying, but like there's good things about getting older. You know, I'm a bit older than you. And like not caring as much what people think. Oh my gosh. Because I cared so much what people thought. I think that was my main thing when I went out, and everyone's judging me and everyone's looking at me, and everything is like this bundle of anxiety. And now it's like, I'm not saying I have total confidence. I don't know where it's coming from, or just not caring, but I just don't, I care about what my friends, what people I care about think of me, but in terms of a total stranger, what they think of me, why would I care, right?
But it sounds like you have the foundation to fall back on, and that comes with age. So like the older you get, you probably, I don't want to generalize too much, but you might have a few people to fall back on. So that if you were rejected at an event, the stakes aren't that high because you can go to those 2 or 3 people in your
That's
life.
true. Yeah.
And so much happens also in the 20s. Like, there's a huge time of change. So people entering the 20s, when they exit into their 30s, might be completely different and have had to like leave friends behind that they no longer like share values, or life paths just don't line up, or like they were toxic or had falling outs. Like, it's just an immense time of change. So I remind clients of that as well, that like those in that age group, at least, that like, I mean, textbook still says you're developing at 24, 25, and that's when you finish. So really, it's not till your late 20s. And again, textbook says that you really have kind of solidified, and not even, it can change even after that, research is finding, but like your identity is somewhat solidified at that point.
Yeah. Cool. So I think we covered the first, it's actually the majority of it, but if we can break this into another episode, it's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm doing the cut. I mean, sorry, I should say thank you for being on the show, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, cool. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this podcast, then please like and subscribe, and please help to support this project by donating on our Patreon page. Thanks.